Hello and welcome to another edition of the Zoom with Our Feet podcast with me, your host, TMac, a professional photographer, videographer, and teacher. The ZoomPod is your gateway into the world of creators, offering valuable insights and discussions with experts from photography, broadcast, and cinema. On this episode, one of my mentors, Steve Warren, stops by to talk about his journey from being the OG of video at North Canton's Hoover High School to his current gig as manager of technical operations at Bally Sports. Our guest speaker is in the photo lab. Let's talk to a pro. Steve Warren, welcome to the Zoom with Our Feet podcast. How are you, sir?
Oh, man, I'm great, Tim. It's good to see you again.
It's great to see you. We haven't seen each other in a while.
It's been a while. Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. So normally, normal probably doesn't have anything to do with it. Typically, I ask everybody what was their first job and what was the first camera that they used, or what was their introduction into the business. So I'm going to combine that question with you because I know you can tell the patient zero story with our favorite high school video program and how you got started.
Sure. I was a student at Hoover High School in North Canton, Ohio. And at the time, we had a closed circuit, if you would, radio station where we did the morning announcements and we played music at lunchtime and stuff. And I was a disc jockey there for a couple of years. And then my senior year, I was the station manager. And the school went out and they bought a camera. I cannot remember what the model number is, but it looked like a shoebox with a lens on the front of it. It was not very stylish, but they brought it to me and they said, "Hey, you run the radio station. You must know how to work this camera. Go do something with it." So, we figured, the most important thing to do in high schools with video camera was to record the football games for the coaches. So we went to the coaches and we said, "Hey, we're going to shoot the games for you." And they said, "No, we shoot the games on film. We use professional camera operators. You guys go somewhere else." So we're sitting around playing with this camera, and the band director came up to us and said, "You've got this camera. Nobody, we can't afford to shoot the band shows on film. That's not in our budget. Would you guys record the halftime shows of the band for us?" Heck yeah, gave us purpose. So we did that. We went out and we recorded the band shows at halftime. And then same thing happened with JV basketball. The varsity team was being recorded on film, but they had no way to record the JV games, couldn't afford it. So we got that gig, and that's how I got started in television recording. The camera was a Sony, the recorder was a Sony. It was a 1/2-inch reel to reel. You'll find it in a museum near you. But and I think the tapes would hold maybe 20 minutes of content total. So we were very judicious, stopping down between. We could get the whole band show on there, but for the JV basketball games, we had to stop down during timeouts and stuff so that we could get a whole half on one reel. Got us into a little bit of trouble. I had a partner who was helping me, Rex Sunkefer, and he was not so much a TV guy, but he was very technical. And he helped us figure out a way to rig a second camera into the system. The school only had one. We borrowed somebody's dad's VHS camera, and we were able to rig it into the auxiliary input. And the recorder also had a TV tuner built into it, so you could record programs off air. And everything was on a big knife switch. It was chunk camera one, chunk auxiliary input, chunk TV tuner. And so during timeouts, Rex, being the nerd that he was and still is, would be watching Star Trek. And so there were more than one occasion where the switch didn't get thrown back to camera in time for recording basketball, and the coaches would get a little sampling of Captain James T. Kirk and the exploits of the Enterprise. But that was the beginning. That was my first TV job. I considered it a job because the band director compensated us by he was a private pilot. He flew us down to the Carroll County Airport for a piece of pie and a burger. So that was our compensation for recording the band shows. So my first professional TV job.
Circle of life, first time in an airplane?
Not the first time in an airplane, but the first time in a private plane. Yeah. My
Nice.
first time in an airplane, I was 6 months old. I was born in Denver, Colorado, and my mom was teaching out there. My dad was a grad student there, and they met, got married, had me, and then 6 months after I was born, they decided to move back to Western New York, and so they threw me in the luggage, overhead luggage, or wherever you put babies back in the time, and sent us. We flew back to New York.
So the uh, so the TV gig, you were basically learning on the job. Did you essentially teach yourself
We did. There
the
was there was no program at the school at that time, so it was. I'm pretty glib about it, but it was kind of here's the camera, kid. Go figure out how to work it. It had a small user's manual, but there was no program. There were no AV teachers. There was nothing in the school at that point. I mean, the advisor for the radio station was the drama teacher. So it was not a radio TV person. So it was, kind of you're on your own. So we figured it out.
self-taught framing,
Yeah.
composition? You had
Yeah.
a nerd, always a must, right?
Had a nerd. Fortunately, I come from a family that loves sports, so I'd seen sports on TV. I know basically how to frame a shot, and it went from there.
Do you think did that set the hook for wanting to be in media and production?
Uh, Maybe, but it was deeply recessed. I was going to be a chemistry teacher when I graduated from high school. That was my goal. My dream was to be a chemistry teacher. Being the oldest of five kids, my dad was looking for a way to maybe supplement the cost of college. So we met with the local Navy recruiter, and he said, you know, if you get into a school that has Navy ROTC, we might be able to, work you after a year or two into an ROTC scholarship. And my dad said, that sounds great. And I said, what kind of chemistry teachers does the Navy use? And the Navy said, we use chemical engineers. So it's almost like being a chemistry teacher, but you're going to be a chemical engineer, and then we will slide you into our nuclear program. So I went to school to be a chemical engineer. The chemistry part I loved because I was going to be a chemistry teacher. Engineering part, not so much. That didn't work out too well. I was pondering my future, um, and I ran into a classmate from Hoover who was attending the University of Akron. And he said, are you still messing around in radio? And I said, not really, but, who knows? He goes, well, the University of Akron, and this was a bazillion years ago, so it's not new anymore, but they said the University of Akron has just built a new state-of-the-art facility for students. You got to go check it out. And I did, and it was awesome. I transferred to Akron. I got a job at the student radio station there and was the sports director. I was doing play-by-play. It was a real radio station. It wasn't closed circuit. It wasn't the one that was going to the dorms. This was the over-the-air station. I worked as a disc jockey on the weekends playing rock and roll music. This is it, man. I'm going to be a rock and roll DJ. I'm ready to go. And then I took a TV class. And once I went over to the dark side, I never went back. It was awesome. I love TV. I was in, one of those right place at the right time situations. The TV center at the university was looking for someone to produce and direct sports. None of their staff guys wanted to do it. Oh no, I've got a ballet I got to do in 3 months. I have to prep for that. Oh man, I got the symphony next year. I got to work on my score.
Next year.
So yeah, I mean, it was literally that. And the director of the department came to a couple of the more advanced students and said, "Hey, I can't get anybody to direct sports. Who wants to do it?" And so I was. They had a small mobile unit with 4 cameras, one replay machine, graphics, and everything. And as a junior in college, I was directing sports that was going out over the air, and it was awesome. So and then that led to a job at the old Richfield Coliseum, working on Cavs games and Indians baseball. And I've been goofing off in TV. I haven't worked a day in my life for 40 years. So it's been great.
One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, there are many, but one of the reasons is all of the just the width of the different things that you've done in your career. You just mentioned directing. You've also produced. What else? Give me some other.
One of the first jobs I had when I got out of college was as a camera operator. And the first game, it was football season. It was great. I loved it. Out there with the crowd, having a great time. The next week, it was snowing and sleeting. And that was my last day as a camera operator. The week after that, the crewer said, we're short a replay operator. Does any of you guys know how to run replay? Yes, I do. Never done it before in my life, but had a chance to get into the truck and out of the weather, and I became a replay operator. And I did that for a few years. And then they were looking for technical directors. Anybody want to be a TD? Well, I'd messed around with the switcher a little bit, and I said, yeah, sure, I can TD. And more on the job training. I taught myself how to TD, and sitting there in the TD's chair next to some directors, some good, some not so good, I thought, I can do that, and I can do that better. So as part of my training for that, I told myself, if I'm going to do this, I want to be able to know what every position in the truck does so that nobody can buffalo me, and also to have the experience and be aware of what each piece of equipment does so I can say, yes, you can do that, or don't be an idiot and ask somebody to do something they can't do. So I got myself on some gigs as an audio guy. Loved mixing shows. Did not like setting up shows. Those guys work way too hard. And I did graphics. There's no spell check in TV graphics. I was not so good at that. And plus, at the time, I was not a great typer. I mean, we all type now because we're all on computers and stuff. But at the time, I had high school typing 15 years ago, and it was not so good. But I did it just to say that I've done it. So I've done everything, every technical position in truck, shaded cameras. I've done it all because I wanted to learn it before I got into directing. And then I started directing and really loved that. That was my passion. A couple of times I was asked to do some producing. That started leaning towards work. So, I shied away from that because producers have to think and plan. And I had a chance to produce Cleveland Indians baseball and be on the road with the team for a few years and stuff. And that was fun. Loved doing it. But I really enjoyed directing. And eventually got promoted out of that into management positions.
Somewhere in the 90s, I don't know when exactly, but I had gone through the station route as a writer producer, but I've been a photographer all my life, and I wanted to be a camera operator because I don't know enough to come in out of the rain. See, that's what separates future directors from career camera operators. Um, we crossed paths when you were directing Mac stuff, which I recall it to be in the 90s.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
Yep.
And
Hmm.
I was living in Columbus, and it was Athens, and I came and they said, yeah, and all the camera guys, I said, how's the director? And they said, oh, you're gonna love him. He's great. And up to that point, maybe I had just had a bad run of folks that didn't do the gig very well, but you were like, holy crap, you were cracking jokes and you were keeping it light. And to this day I still remember, and I was very early. It was one of those things where, have you done? Yes. And I hadn't done a lot, but I distinctly remember your style being very camera friendly, and ultimately I came to understand that that's why your shows were so good.
Well, thanks. That was intentional. I mean, it's my personality and my nature to begin with, but it was intentional. I'd worked with some directors who were not that way. You know, they yelled, they screamed, they blamed any mistake on everybody but themselves, and especially if you have a inexperienced technician, camera operator, tape person, if they make a mistake, yelling at them's not going to make it any better. As long as the person is trying their best, that's all I ask out of anybody. And you work with them. Everything can be a teaching experience, and it's great. I always ask people who are crewing the shows for me, hey, if we've got somebody with uh, less experience, that's not a problem. Just let me know so I can work with them on the show and um, make it better for everybody. Because yelling at people doesn't really help.
No. And at the other end, why would I want to do anything extra for you?
Right. Exactly.
Which is funny because then as my career started to circle around, I'm now, for the last 20 years, I've been dealing with students and doing that sort of thing, and at very low levels directing students. You have to speak a lot more words when you're directing, but it is so much more rewarding to watch them be nervous at the beginning, and then by the end of it, they're doing everything that they should be doing as a camera operator.
That to me is real directing because you have to direct each camera operator. You have to direct everybody. I mean, you are directing a lot. A lot of times we talk to our professional sports directors and tell them that they're not directing, they're shot selecting because they've got great camera operators who've been doing this for many, many years, and they will go get the shot. And our directors aren't directing; they're just picking a shot that's already there for them, which most of the time is good, but every once in a while you still have to direct and you have to tell somebody what to do. But when you're dealing with students or inexperienced operators, that's when you really get a chance to direct. And yeah, you're a little more tired at the end of the show because you had to work. You can't sit there and tell jokes the whole time. You actually have to think about what's coming up. You have to direct this person into their next shot and say, hey, if this situation happens down the road, this is what you got to be ready to do. And so it's real directing, and that's fun for me.
And then the next period in the career was the transition to management level work. Talk about talk about that. So you were a truck person,
I was a
and
truck rat most of my career. you know, and even as a producer and director, living in the truck, loving life in the truck. And then they said, we need a coordinating producer. Would you mind coming out of the truck and being the coordinating producer, supervising the producers and the directors, working with them? And I definitely missed being on the road. I'm fortunate in that my wife is very understanding about the travel. She has experience in the business as well, so she knows about it. We do not have children, so the travel was easier for me than a family guy that's missing t-ball games and first steps and proms and stuff like that. I don't know how guys like you who travel all the time in your career were able to do that. It's a tough road, but so I was not uh, overly sad about getting out of the truck. After traveling for so many years, a chance to stay home and have a almost normal life is. I mean, I still work. We've got a game. We've got two games going right now, so I'm technically working here at 10:18 at night. So it's. But yeah, I had a chance to do that, and then when our company was purchased, the company whose shirt you are currently wearing, Sports Time Ohio, was purchased by Fox Sports. Uh, I had an opportunity to be. I was asked to become the director of operations for the Ohio, all the Fox products in Ohio, and so I moved into that and oversee all the technical aspects now, where the trucks are, when the trucks are, who the crews are, when the crews get there, transmission, studios, engineering, all of that stuff. So it was different, but I love it.
Yeah. And I want to delve into, just because I know the story, I want you to tell the story of the, I guess innovation is the right word, that you were a part of, that the Indians did. So the traditional way of producing baseball, trucks come, crews come, games happen. Uh, in my days, there was a home crew and there were visiting crews, and then on those days when the networks that covered baseball, so on certain days there might have been three whole crews shooting a baseball game, and it was all generated out of the stadium. Cleveland, during your time, got the bright idea of changing that, what do I want to call it, production paradigm, when it was shortly after Jacobs Field was commissioned and built, correct? So talk about,
2006.
so
So
2006. So talk about how that came about and ultimately what it ended up being, because personally, knowing how it happened and what happened, that was just way beyond its years.
yeah, it was pretty exciting, and it was one of those what the heck did we get ourselves into at the time? But um, the it started with the advent of Sports Time Ohio. Fox had been the rights holder for the Indians, and there was a rift that happened between Fox and the Indians that I wasn't privy to. I don't know why, but the Indians decided we're going to start our own regional sports network called Sports Time Ohio. At the time, I was working for the Indians, managing their broadcasting operations. And they said, Steve, we're starting a new network. We want you to move across the hall and be part of the network. So once again, I was patient zero. There was actually Cleveland legend Pat Murray was actually hired first, but he had obligations with other teams. So while he was hired, I was the first person to be boots on the ground, I guess, for to get the network up and running. But it was a partnership between the Indians, WKYC in Cleveland, and Time Warner. And WKYC, their function was to provide the technical part and the production part. And so they built a control room that was connected to, at that time, Jacobs Field with fiber optic cable. And everything we did was done remotely from the studio at Channel 3. And it was a unique process at the time, to the point when Fox came back and kicked the door in and backed up the Brinks truck and bought the network back from the Dolan family. They looked at the model and said, this might be something to look into for the future. And it worked really well for us. The big drawback was our producer was not there where he could, hop on the elevator, go up into the press box and meet with his announcers. He would have to go to the park if he wanted to do that, or do the meeting remotely. But the truck guys loved it because they didn't have to deal with ballpark traffic, and they were not parked next to the dumpster like you normally are when you're in the TV truck. And we were in this gorgeous, spacious facility. We weren't crammed into a truck, in a gorgeous facility at KYC's state-of-the-art studios in downtown Cleveland. And it worked really well for the time that we did it.
It was so far ahead of its time because in the year 20, whenever the last Olympics was, and starting the last few Olympic Games, NBC did exactly that model. They have control rooms in Stamford, Connecticut, and announcers that aren't at the venues. They're watching monitors next to the control room because the director and the producer are there. It is fiber optic to wherever in the world, and then there's camera monkeys and the tech side at the venue, but the Indians were doing that in the 90s, in the early 2000s.
Yeah, and the networks, like you said, the Olympics had been done that way for a while, but those are big money shows and high tech shows. We were the first regional sports network to try anything like that. We were the first full-time, high-definition regional sports network, and that was a big thing for us to be that. And it was cutting edge at the time, and it was exciting times. And our engineers used to love, a lot of people know about fiber optic cable now, but back at that point, people didn't really know what it is. And our engineers would love when people came in to take tours of the facility. They'd pull out a strand of glass and say, all the cameras over at the ballpark, they're coming back on this. And, it's a piece of glass the width of your hair. I don't have hair, but the width of some people's hair. And, it was just mind-boggling, the technology. So it was fun.
So as the technical manager, you are making sure, was all of that fiber already run? Was it run for that?
It was run for that. It was run for that. It was installed for that.
And it's got to be terminated at both ends,
right?
Converted back into copper because the building is already wired, right?
Yep.
For what our standard was triax cable. So there's boxes all over Progressive, then Jacobs Field, at all of those positions. So when we monkeys took gear out to those boxes or places, or the chair up on the level, we're just plugging into the building.
Yeah, we had a horse trailer that was parked in the service area at the ballpark, and that's where all the conversion was done. And the cameras would come back, go from the copper, get converted into light, and then sent to the control room.
It's just crazy. And
Yeah.
all the audio, which was
Yep.
enormous on it in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just ahead of its time. And and
Yeah. It was-
and you were managing that
well, at
crazy
that point, I was
technology.
still producing,
Oh, you
so
were producing.
I don't get to take credit for the technical aspect of that.
Got it.
I get to take a little bit of credit for pushing the boundaries of what it could do because they're like, all right, we've got this. I'm like, all right, can I do this? I don't know. We didn't think about that. So, but no, I can't take credit for the technical part of that.
How many different sports have you produced or directed?
Uh, let's see. Uh, the big the big four: baseball, basketball, hockey, uh, football, soccer, rugby, equestrian, track and field, um, softball, a lot like baseball but different. Um, boxing,
You love them all, but
love
what's your
them all.
favorite? What's your favorite? What sport do you like to direct?
I like um, there's two that are really big for me. One is baseball because you never know where the ball's going in baseball. Basketball, it's going up and down the court. You got a pretty good idea where it's going. Baseball, no idea where the ball's going to go when it's been hit, and that comes with its own challenges. You get to do some real directing in baseball. That's a lot of fun. But for me, the other one is the game day experience. Oh, I've done golf. I forgot about golf. The game day experience of college football. Being on a college campus on a Saturday afternoon with the tailgaters, the marching bands. There's just something really cool about the college football experience. So it's somewhere between baseball and college football.
All right. So, what is what is the most rewarding thing uh, that you feel like the career has brought you?
First of all, it's just I feel very, very lucky. I mentioned earlier that I haven't worked a day in my life, and uh, there's a couple tough days each year, but overall, I watch sports on TV and they mail me a check. I'm very, very lucky, and I feel um, very blessed to have stumbled into this. I mean, again, I was this was not the career path that I personally had chosen, and it just worked out, and it's been great. So I like that. I've the particularly in our area, the regional sports area, it's a really small fraternity. And in television and sports television in general, I mean, we were talking before we started recording about mutual friends that who knew that we knew each other. But I get to work with some really cool people. We've worked together for years, uh, watching new young people come in and get it. They start out, I'm sure I was the same way when I started. I knew everything the first day I started. And, eventually, after getting slapped around a little bit, I got it. And watching people figure it out and get it and become superstars at what they do is really cool and really rewarding. And, I'm just, it's all of that.
Well, I know this has happened to you because I know from personal experience because you've helped my career along. But And since I've moved on to education, I get asked all the time by students about what they can do if they want a career in media production, broadcasting, sports. So let me end with, give me three things. Well, and plus, you've interviewed for interns and people for work in your various jobs. So I think more than most of my guests, you are well qualified to answer the following, which is, what three things do you tell aspiring media uh, peeps that they need to have or know to make a go of this crazy business?
I think number one is to be diverse. You don't want to be Steve Warren, who comes out of school and says he's going to be a camera operator. You want to have your eyes open to whatever opportunities are there. If you have a chance somewhere along your education to learn multiple facets, producing, directing, running audio, being a camera operator, get as much experience as you can, because you never know what you're going to stumble into. We have uh, a situation where we work where we had a person come out of school. They fell in love with one piece of equipment. They learned it. They're really good at it, but we warned them, you might want to learn something else, because this is a technological business. This might not be around forever. And sure enough, last year, the company that made it has stopped supporting it. Our company is not going out and buying the new latest and greatest of what is next in that line. This person now is a man without an island. So he's gone back to square one. He's retraining and learning some other things. We'll keep him busy, but he could have learned that other stuff at the time and just slid right over and gone. So you want to get as much experience as you can. And to that, the second point would be kick some doors down. Get your foot in the door wherever you can. Yeah, we all want to start out shooting the Olympics and shooting the Super Bowl, but it doesn't work that way. If the local cable company needs someone to pull cable for Friday night high school football, take it, because 3 weeks from now, their sideline camera operator is going to be sick, and they're going to need somebody. Hey, Steve, do you know how to do this? Heck yeah, I do. And now you're the sideline camera operator, and then you work your way up from there. So, wherever you can get the experience, get the experience. Yeah, it's probably not what you envisioned when you started, but there's a lot of places to do it. Every minor league team in every sport has in-house services. I mean, the scoreboard shows have gotten huge now. They're multi-camera, they're state-of-the-art equipment. You know, don't look down your nose at a double A baseball team who wants to hire you. And yeah, you're going to work in the concession stand 2 days a week, and 2 days a week you're going to work in the scoreboard room. It happens, but that's how you get your foot in the door. So, uh,
That's free food and free experience. Well, what are
yeah,
we like?
yeah.
What's wrong with that?
And the last key thing I would say is be persistent. Um, as someone who does some hiring, uh, you call me today, and I may not have anything available, and I'm going to tell you, yeah, I'm going to keep your name on file, and I'm not lying to you. I am going to keep your name on file. But if you call me back in a month and say, hey, Steve, anything opened up yet? I'm going to pull your resume to the top and say, oh, Tim, yeah, he's okay. I don't have anything yet, Tim, but now your resume's back on the top of the pile because I want to see what you're doing. So, it's a fine line. You don't want to be the guy that or gal that is getting everybody all bent out of shape and say, huh, oh, Tim, this guy calls me 4 times a day. We're not calling him. But yeah, be persistent, keep after people. Most people like myself are not going to be offended that you're just following up. Maybe this week it's a call, maybe 3 weeks from now it's an email, whatever. But just keep your name in front of people, and it helps because a lot of companies, ours is one of them, when you apply, you don't get to talk to me at first. We post a job, it goes into some HR computer thing and they screen people out, and I get to see maybe what the computer thinks are the top 10 candidates. So use your connections, use your resources, because if Tim McCarty calls me and says, "Hey, Steve, I got this guy," you
I
know,
got a guy.
I got a guy. If he's not, if you don't have anything now, think about it when his name shows up on the computer. And so it's you gotta play all the angles and work all the channels. Um, Interviewing is important. I still, before I hire anybody, I do an in-person interview, and I can't tell you the number. You got to have the eye contact. Um, I get a lot of people. We live in a society where everybody stares at their phone all day long, and I'll get people who come in and they can't look at me, they can't talk to me because uh, they're not used to that. So if you're going to do an interview, be prepared to talk to the person and look them in the eye. Don't be staring at your phone, even if you don't have your phone. Don't be staring down. It's still a person business. So I feel that I have been very successful in reading people. I get to know about people pretty well in the interview. Your technical skills, no, I'm going to have to watch your work to get those, but to get to know you as a person. And I think after 40 years of doing this, I've got a pretty good radar for that type of stuff. So when you come in to talk to me or any hiring manager, be prepared and you know, ready to talk and ready to dazzle people.
I used to tell students, it's funny you mentioned that follow up. I used to tell students that when you do something, in our case for the Hoover Video Production Program, if you direct live shows or you're mixing a live newscast, yes, it's recorded, but it's recorded live, dude. You're mixing live.
Yeah,
That's a good opportunity within that month that you were talking about to email them and said, "Hey, Mr. Warren, it was really cool. I got to live mix a show. I really like it. I think I'm kind of leaning towards audio. Please let me know when one of the A2 kind of, you know, jobs comes available. I think I would, I would love to give to try." And you'd be surprised that people go, "Oh yeah, that's number one, you've got experience,
right.
and number two, you've got interest."
I get a lot of recommendations for crew from our producers that are going out and doing other shows, and from educators like yourself. And they're working with students, and they're like, "All right, there's this kid. He just mixed this. I just did a ESPN 3 game at Kent State. Nobody watched it. Nobody cared. But this kid mixed a hell of a show." And it's like, yeah, give me his name. And likewise with you and the other educators that I'm working with, it's like, yeah, if you guys see somebody with talent, they're going to move to the head of the line because you spend hours and hours and hours with them, and you know their potential and their qualifications, and that counts. So, yeah.
I'm going to end with a name drop of one of my Hoover students from my very first year teaching. And I distinctly remember emailing you saying, oh, have I got a hot shot for you. The young man's name is Nick Gambone, who, as I recall, you were in that transition period, and he ends up getting a job up there, and he is now in your former position.
He is. I just ran into Nick the other day at the ballpark, and it was great to see him. And he has really been successful there. He's doing a great job. He's making some crazy video stuff there, and doing a great job with his team up there.
Yeah.
And it was, you had mentioned Nick to me, and when he was in college, after he had left Hoover and he was in college, and I love to tell the story and embellish it a little bit, but I was picking up a pizza one day, and I pulled up to the drive-through window and pizza for Warren, and guy says, "Are you Steve Warren?" At the time I was still with the Cleveland Indians. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, I'm Nick Gambone from Hoover. I was in McCarty's class, and I believe he went to Kent State, right? And and this is what I've been doing and stuff like that." So I like to embellish that and tell people when I got home I had a copy of Nick's resume on top of my pizza in the box. That part isn't true, but I always tell people that. But it is great, and we brought Nick on at that point as an intern, and now he's running the joint. So yeah, it's you never know when you're going to have a chance to stick your foot in the door and then kick the door open.
Well, and I use Nick for years afterwards, saying that it's about your attitude and your network, and how you build that network and how you let people help you. This is not something you do by yourself, nor is the work solo either. And was able to say, look, Nick was able to, yes, he worked hard while he was here, but he got a lot of experience, and he was willing to take direction, and he understood the value of contacts that both his teachers had, and to leverage those. And I always remember giving Nick the speech. Okay, here's the deal, sir. He knows me, right? He not so sure about you yet. So you are representing us, this program, and listen to what he says, be open, and be ready for what's going to happen. Because if something goes south, he's not going to call you. He's going to call me. Nothing like a little fear.
That's right.
In the equation. Steve Warren, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the project. You are uniquely qualified, given your crazy career, still going strong, and helping out so many people along the way, me included, as a very young. I had hair then, I think.
I think we all did back then.
Yeah. Steve, keep doing what you're doing, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate you.
Many thanks to Media Production OG Steve Warren, Manager of Technical Operations at Bally's Sports Network. The Zoom with Our Feet podcast is a production of TV Commando Media. The ZoomPod theme is by Novembers and their funky groove, Cloud 10. Until next time, be ready, creators, for the challenges on your journey.